in the spring, Greg Sankey, who I think is going to wind up running the whole damn thing, personally.
He kind of already does.
I know he kind of already does, but I think at some point they're going to do this, okay? And they, meaning somebody's going to get together and look at him and say,
you got to be the commissioner,
yes,
we need a commissioner.
Correct, of a new entity that is 60-something schools strong,
okay,
and split it up into a couple conferences, and all of these schools have the same issues and sensibilities, the issues and sensibilities surrounding NIL, transfer portal, scheduling, all of that stuff, because and the latest sort of bellwether for this was Sankey at the SEC media days telling a story of how he got to call Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, to say, let's start our own working group together. And it was, I guess he's telling the story in January prior to the national championship in Arizona that they were going to, or prior to something that was going down, and prior to the national championship in Texas, obviously. But long story short, he said he was at a working group conversation on NIL, and they got a report, and they threw it open for questions to the group, and he backed, I'm paraphrasing here, he backed up to let's see what other people are going to ask questions about, and nobody asked a damn question. And he's just like, really? Nothing? Like, that's what's happening here? And he just said, basically, I'm paraphrasing, I got to call somebody. And he called Petitti, because who's as close to the SEC with the same issues on NIL and everything else and sensibilities? It's the Big Ten. We're so close. We're getting there. We're inching our way towards there. And tell me I'm wrong.
I don't know that you are. I think there's a lot of entanglements right now with TV contracts that I think those things need to be sorted out.
So, right? So who's the one that's going to say we need somebody? Because it's not going to be school presidents. Is it ESPN? Right, where ESPN is just going to basically say,
ESPN's not going to do anything that's not primarily suited to ESPN's interest.
Though. Well, which would be
like it's running pretty well right now for ESPN because they have, they gave a little of the playoff up, but they didn't want Fox to have any of it. Right, full disclosure, obviously I work at Fox.
Right,
but they don't have the Big Ten. They do. They're all in on now the SEC. We're going to see how the playoff works for the next couple of years. Like right now, the Big 12, like the Big 12 could have a 9-3 champ, or I guess it'd be 10-3,
right?
And they could be slotted. They would be slotted ahead of, the second best SEC school, and get a first round bye, one of the 4 seeds, or it's going to be interesting to see how much fallout there is, depending on how the playoff starts to shake out. And I think because that's the big ticket item that everybody who is in the sport looks at. If you're Tony Petitti at the Big Ten, or certainly if you're Greg Sankey, because they're the ones who have the most influence. I mean, like we had. Brett Yormark is one of the smartest people I feel like who's come into college sports. He's
Big 12
Big 12 commissioner. Came from, had been in the NBA. Just a really sharp guy, and I feel like I don't know if I would necessarily categorize it as he saved the Big 12, but he's been a godsend for the Big 12.
So that's what I'm saying is that there's schools in the Big 12, schools in the Big 10, schools in the SEC, schools in the ACC, which you say is already beginning to be shaky. You've got Notre Dame as well.
Yeah.
Find some other schools that might be able to be poached.
I think those
and
are
throw it in their 64, and then there's other teams that may not make the 64 that can be relegated in or out, just like the Premier League.
What I'm getting at is it needs to be something where Greg Sankey especially, and Tony Petitti, but especially Greg Sankey, needs to have the motivation to go, this system is not good enough for our interests.
The current system.
Well,
it isn't. It's going to, at some point, it won't be, because there's too much wild west when it comes to portal, when it comes to NIL, and plus it's also maybe not good for the kids. I think the transfer portal is good for the kids, But
Well,
when
the
there's
NIL is certainly good for the kids.
unless the kid is being told, come here and you're going to make X, and there's no like real way to back that play up, and then the kid's left with no NIL money that he was promised. And no roster spot that he was promised. And then all of a sudden he's just sitting, what the hell just happened? Because some other kid comes in from a portal. Like, there has to be some sort of
right now it's
codification
the wild, wild west.
for these kids.
Right
too.
now it's the wild, wild west. I mean, you work specifically in a fully flown business that, with the NFL, I forgot, there's one owner I heard who was like, roots for the Dallas Cowboys because he knows that's good for their business. Like even if his team, I don't know if that's his second favorite team or whatnot. I don't know if that's a joke, like he's joking or being half serious.
Sure.
But I think that's where things are headed. I don't know how fast they get there because there's so many balls up in the air, whether it's lawsuits. There's some stuff that's going to get sorted out.
The
soon.
paying of players too.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, but you're
by
also,
schools.
Like we had this conversation. I was going to say with Yormark, where it was about, whether it becomes like the All-State 12 as opposed to the Big 12. Like with naming rights. You're also talking about private equity. I don't know the private equity thing. He seemed to indicate will be moving faster if it's going to happen. Then it's a timeline.
Well, certainly if schools are going to have to pay players. Okay.
Where's the money coming from?
Private equity, probably. I've heard some people telling me that there are definitely some schools that would say, we are not equipped for this. We're not equipped for this. So you private equity, you run our school program and pay us a licensing fee to use our school name. Like we're out. We're out of running athletics personally. You run it, you fund it, you pay us a fee for using our school name and marks and logos.
I do feel
that's the way this is going.
I do feel like there are now, and again, I say this with Yormark in mind, I feel like there are smarter business people running the conferences than there were a generation ago.
Oh, I'd agree with that. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.